Ryan Hall is the fastest American distance runner and a renowned Olympic athlete. When he retired in 2016, Ryan sensed he could do more with his talents. Since then, Ryan and his wife Sarah have helped those in extreme poverty all over the world. In his book, Run the Mile You're In, Ryan reflects on his faith and the highs and lows of his career and shares the powerful way he discovered to love others around him.
Well, Ryan joins us now. Welcome. It's nice to have you on the Interactive Show today.
Thank you.
You grew up in Big Bear, California, and there's a lake in Big Bear, a big lake, and that was really where your running started. I mean, this wasn't something you had an interest in. You didn't grow up doing it. Tell us about the moment that God spoke to you and led you.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of kids can relate to that, right? Like, I was the kid in PE class. They're like, you have to run the mile today. And I was like, oh, no, not again.
I was the kid next to you.
We're both in the same boat. So that's kind of, I was 13, going down to a basketball game in a van full of rambunctious teenagers, and I remember just looking out over the lake and just feeling like God just kind of planted a little seed of desire for me to try and run around the lake. And it's amazing for me to be in this seat now and reflect back on that and be like, what if I didn't act on that? I wouldn't have the same wife, the same kids, the same life, have all the experiences, been to 2 Olympics. None of that would have happened if my 13-year-old self didn't act on that little tiny seed of desire God placed in me. So, I'm so grateful that I did act on that, and God is still speaking to us, and He is still, inspiring us with these little tiny seeds of inspiration.
Power of a yes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I know, just from the few people I know that are significant runners, that it's painful to run. I mean, blisters, feet, ankles, knees, hips, I mean, just everything. What's the joy in that? I don't mean to sound so incredulous, but...
No, that's a great question. I actually preached an entire sermon at Pastor Matthew Barnett's church, Angelus Temple, on this very subject recently, where I gave 7 different tools for handling discomfort and pain. Because I always describe my job to people as I'm not really a professional runner, I'm a professional pain manager. Yeah. And that was really the case. And, I looked a lot to Scripture for how to best get through those. And I won't get into all 7 tools that I gave the congregation, but the biggest one is just looking at Jesus. Like, He endured the cross for the joy set before Him.
Stay focused.
It was for the joy, though. It's like, but what was that joy? I believe it was me, it was you, it was accomplishing His mission. And so I found that I was also similarly able to endure a whole lot of pain when I was focused on the joy of accomplishing the mission that God had put in front of me.
Even when you're on the right track, even when you know that you've been called to a mission, it's not easy often. When you were at Stanford, you had some real down times. How did you handle that?
Yeah, I actually dropped out of school. My sophomore year at Stanford, I dropped out, went back home, wasn't sure if I was coming back or not. And I remember having a conversation with my pastor in Big Bear, and he told me, he's like, what's the last thing you knew God was telling you to do? And I knew it was going to Stanford, So I was like, I got to go back. So then I went back. But what was really powerful about going back is I started to spend time alone with God in the Stanford football stadium, because I kind of come to life in football stadiums, and just have a pen and paper and be going through Scripture. And I felt like the question that I needed to be asking God was, God, how do you see me right now? Because I just saw myself as a failure. Like, I was failing in the classroom, I was failing running. Like, I'd get up in the morning just not like what I saw. But I started to ask God, how do you see me right now? And when I started to understand how He saw me, and I started to understand that there's nothing I can do to make God love me any more, and there's nothing I can do to make Him love me any less. Like, I am that unconditionally loved by God. And when I realized that, it just freed me up. I was like, okay, now I can go run, take big risks, fail, blow up, not have everything go perfectly, and be totally fine with that, because it doesn't change how I value myself, because I'm valuing myself based on how God values me.
That's a hard truth to come to when there are such expectations all around you, from your coaches, from your, team, from your family. I mean, that's a truth we all need to come to at some point if we really want to live free. Yeah. That's why Jesus said He came to set us free.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize that, I think I can make some dent in this whole running business?
It was after that first 15-mile run. I remember coming back and collapsing in the couch, just being exhausted. So, side note, I always tell people, if you want to hear from God, physically exhaust yourself. It's a lot easier to hear God that way. So, during that time, on the couch, I felt like God was telling me, give me a gift to run with the best guys in the world, but gave me that gift so I could help other people. So I understood, what it means to run with the best guys in the world going to the Olympics, but I didn't understand how you help people through running. And then, fast forward 10, 15 years later, and I started to see how you can actually tangibly change how long someone's going to live because you decided to do a race and do some fundraising along the way.
And a lot of runners do raise funds for people, for issues that matter, people they may never lay eyes on. For you, how did God speak to your heart?
Yeah, through experience, like going to Zambia. My wife and I, we were spokespersons for Team World Vision, and one Chicago Marathon, about 500 runners came together and raised enough money to bring clean water to 90,000 people.
Life-changing.
Yeah, and so, standing at the boar hole cutting ceremony and bringing fresh water to them, one of the community members, is because you guys did this, everyone's life expectancy is expected to rise by 10 years.
Wow.
And I was like, how crazy is that? We can go do a race and people are living longer. 10 years longer is the difference between kids growing up with parents or not. And so, we knew we wanted to do more, and we started our own foundation shortly thereafter.
Speaking of kids growing up with parents, you also adopted 4 siblings from Ethiopia that are your daughters and thriving in your family environment. And your wife is now preparing for the 2020 Olympics.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we have the Olympic trials coming up prior to the Olympics in Atlanta this February. So we will be in Atlanta for that. And I'm coaching her now. And that's kind of my new role, as being a dad, coach, author, speaker. And I'm just loving this new season of life.
You also did something remarkable. Pastor Matthew Barnett asked you to do a marathon on 7 continents, and you weren't really running at the time that he asked you.
Yeah, I was retired. I didn't really train for it either. So it's 7 marathons, 7 days on 7 continents, so consecutive days. So that kind of blew my mind. It's like, how do you even get on 7 different continents in a week?
7, yes, exactly.
Let alone run a marathon while you're there. And it was an incredible trip that changed my life. Pastor Matthew, he's changed my life incredibly. He's actually one of the reasons why this book has been written. So it's an incredible experience. It was kind of the bookend of my career as a marathoner.
Yeah, well, the book is amazing, as is your life story. And I just want to encourage all of you, get a hold of it. The book is called Run the Mile, Finding God in Every Step, because he's in every step in your life, too. This is a great message for each and every one of us. It's available wherever books are sold. Thank you. Great to have you here, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Bless you.